Good morning, Dan and Amy. As Mike Scott has been reporting, we got a little defensive action, if you will, happening at high schools around the country today. Stand for the Second. More than 300 high schools in 40 states staging school walkouts, a la Parkland and the walkouts for Parkland several weeks back, in support of the Second Amendment. Support of the Second Amendment, led by high school students.
Oh, I wonder if they're going to be penalized for walking out of school.
Or called Hitler, like that Kyle Kashuv in Parkland has been called by those who don't share his view of the individual right to self-protection. But it's important to know that, young people, high school students, like the population in general, there's a diversity of opinion. David Hogg does not speak for every 18-year-old in this country. And we're pleased to be joined by Will Riley, who's the organizer of this student group, Stand for the Second, and has put together, largely put together, I'm sure with some help, this walkout around the country today. Will, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
So you're a senior from New Mexico, and what was the impetus for you to launch this effort that's culminating today?
Well, really, I saw the response of the Parkland students after the horrible tragedy that occurred there, and then I see the depiction of our generation by the media as an anti-gun generation, and then of course that emboldens former Supreme Court Justice Stevens to come out and call for the repeal of the Second Amendment.
Right.
And it was at that point that I decided that something had to be done.
And so, how did you? Did you take what the other walkouts in support of the Parkland survivors? Did you see that and think, you know what, I need to do something for our Second Amendment rights?
Right. Yeah. I think, we aren't trying to disrupt education. And the reason we decided on a walkout is because around the country, school districts condoned or even actively promoted the anti-gun walkouts. And so I think it's important that we discover viewpoint discrimination in schools around the country. Already we're hearing reports of, they're saying, oh, well, you'll be expelled if you participate in this, but you would be heavily encouraged to participate in the other one. If that is the case, that is a legal and constitutional issue. And so we do have, we are trying to get some of our people around the country who have suffered from viewpoint discrimination in touch with lawyers to make sure that they're going to be okay.
Right. You've broke the seal. You've established the standard, so we should be able to benefit from the same standard, I guess, that's been established per the March for Our Lives and National Day of Action stuff. How did you get connected to students from all these high schools around the country? Is this largely kind of social media, spontaneous order?
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what happened through social media. Mostly, and putting up a website and spreading on, really just telling people, spread word of mouth, making calls. That's really just how it ended up spreading. We now actually have more than 400 schools signed up.
Oh, 400,
and
great.
That is the last I've checked, and it may be growing very fast. I know we just got featured on Fox News last night and then again this morning, so that we may be growing faster than I know.
And what's your background in terms of why is the Second Amendment and protecting individual right to self-protection so important to you?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the entire Constitution is important. All of our rights are important. But the reason that I did choose to speak out about the Second Amendment is because that is the one that, number one, is most under attack. And two, it's because, the students are so involved in this debate. The argument's being made that gun control legislation is something that is for the kids. And, people ask me, why don't you stand up for another constitutional issue? Well, if people were saying, I don't know, something about, free speech, I guess, regulation is something that's being done for the kids, then obviously I'd stand up for that. But, at this time, I really think that this is a special case.
So what's the game plan? For in March of Our Lives and for the National Day of Action, they went out at 10 o'clock. They stood there for 17 minutes, 1 minute for each victim, and then went back inside. What are you going to do?
Well, we symbolically asked for 16 minutes, and that's because we're saying we're not even going to ask for as much as they received. We just want an opportunity to also have our side of the story heard. And so we are also advising 10 a.m. However, around the country, I know a lot of people have state testing or they have finals. And if they walk out during those, it will invalidate their tests. And so we're advising people change the time if that's necessary. In fact, in my hometown, we have changed the time to like about 3:30.
Yeah, you got to get you got to get the people walking out back in because they're the ones who are literate. Otherwise, the curve is going to be blown. 65% of kids in this country can't can't read or do math at grade level, so they need the pro Second Amendment students, don't they?
Right.
So, how are you being received at your school in New Mexico?
Well, I think as far as the administration, they were a little hesitant at first, but now they are on board. As far as the other students, I think the majority of the students that at least have spoken to me, I'm sure some disagree with me, but they haven't really been very vocal. They're just happy that they have a platform, and that's what I've been hearing from around the country is that people are happy that they now have a platform to express their view because they did feel that they were being misrepresented.
Well, are you concerned that somebody will be bullied or hazed or anything that would happen if they, because in Illinois, that probably would be shunned upon if somebody walked out today for their Second Amendment rights, if they'd even let them walk out. But do you think that that's going to happen? Do you anticipate that happening in any part of the country?
It may happen. I know we have some schools in Illinois and some in Chicago, I'm pretty sure. And so I would want to say to those people specifically, they're very brave. And, the people who are standing against probably their peers and also their administrations to stand up for our rights, there's only one way to describe them, and that's to call them patriots.
There you go. He is Will Riley. He is the organizer of Stand for the Second, standforthesecond.com. More than 400 high schools now around the country, 16-minute walkouts at some point today in defense of individual right to self-protection, Second Amendment rights. Will, congratulations on your success doing this. You're a patriot. You're courageous, too, and we appreciate your organizational prowess and what you've put together for today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.